For me, there is a specific melange of soft and hard concrete and green. There's a lot of overlapping things going on here.
You enter to an environment and it's absolutely immediate, which is extremely peaceful, very colorful, lots of vegetations.
I saw some mattresses there and some old clothes.
I've seen a fireplace in the middle of the road, or I've seen clothes and a place where people slept in the woods.
They have, this fortress of Plattenbau across the river.
There's a lot of sounds, but they feel like quite calming.
It is abandoned spot or abandoned landscape, but in almost fully urbanized area of the city.
The site has been part of discussions about the city of Kosice for a long time. It's one of the key brownfields, or actually, if we can call it brownfield, it's like key site of the city because it's very close to the city center.
I'm responsible for urban planning in the city, and this site is a little bit out of radar yet. Maybe it's good for the site, but when the time comes. And we will make some plans for this site, so we have to know more about it. And this workshop was very good for me to make to have a better point of view and about this site and to have more informations from maybe different point of view.
I think here in Kosice is on a very good way because in my town, 30 kilometers on north from Kosice, we don't have anything like that, and only developers changed the city. And I think if what they are doing here will get into local council and some ideas can be used in Kosice. It can be very helpful, and I think they do very interesting job like collecting ideas.
Spolka started because we just wanted to hang out more with each other, more than just during Christmas, because we were just exchanging all these great ideas of what we can do with our hometown.
Spolka is a collective of friends, architects, sociologists that engage with critical assessment of spaces.
I think there exists something like Spolka Plus, and I'm a plus in Spolka, and it's very nice. We were discussing it yesterday that it's very open concept, that everyone can be part of Spolka, and it's like a plus, and we are then a collective.
We started Navm school because we actually thought that we need some space for just critical experimentation with space, also to test interdisciplinarity.
We always dream about that, in the city level or in the participatory ways, bringing different, people together with different skills, but then you often just, get on this boundary of how can they actually work together, because if you get them to draw some simple plans, and the architects are going to be super bored, and then for the other ones going to be too advanced, so how do you actually find the methodology of working together?
The summer school was divided into two parts. One was really focused on the mapping itself, and the other was more about the reflection of what we actually found.
Somehow people had this luxury of time, but also the luxury of the method to choose from and extend or deepen or enlarge or in whatever way they wanted. We didn't want to direct the aims of what is the goal of this.
And we really should talk more about the participants themselves, because I think that they're amazing. I think we found young professionals like really like people that has experience not only from school but also from the field, that were so motivated to learn, to try new things. And it's so unusual. Like I've worked with many groups, like really in my life, and this was like very special.
I think the very important aspect is the setting where the summer school is taking place. It's a Tabačka cultural center. This is where the participants can stay in the hostel and where we have our workshop space, which is the Fabric Cafe.
At first, when we went to the site, I wasn't like crazy inspired, to be honest.
I actually live in this place, in this city, and never been there.
I think when we first came there, like it's definitely felt like a bit of a non-space, like perhaps like a space that doesn't look like it has that much potential.
My initial reactions were very bodily. I would say I really remember that it was a very hot and very long walk from our hostel towards the site.
And then we arrived and we crossed the railroad. A few trains passed by, so we were waiting. There was already like a little bit of suspense.
You have this sort of this railway area that blocks that whole zone.
Suddenly you're in a city and you have this impression to enter in a world of peace, in a world of something extremely quiet. Few people walking, few people cycling. The first impression is that it's really peace.
Sort of a jungle opened up, and I felt it was a very hidden island.
Wherever you see, you have pleasant perspectives.
I like those kind of places where it feels like a bit of wilderness in the city, and I also like the industrial parts combined with the wild. Classic, but I like it.
It's covered mostly by abandoned meadows, some forest-like spots. There is one fragment of natural or close natural-like riparian forest of the Hornad River.
One of the first things that I've seen with my group that I initially went with was that there was this garden colony that I didn't know before about. And at first we were just seeing like a small hut, and then afterwards we were trying to get through it and see like what's behind it and everything. And then we were seeing that there are many more like that.
I was surprised with the place. There are so beautiful gardens and very close to river.
I felt there like home because I come from Ostrava and it's like similar surrounding.
It's kind of reminiscent of my childhood places where I grew up like next to my grandpa.
What really got me about this place is that it really had definitely a very negative energy, very stagnating. I mean, the plants made no sense, really. Like how those plants got there and why. Or I thought, it's like this layers and layers of, humans leaving the trace of their activities. There might have been some houses or some kind of industrial production, but it was very loaded.
You can read the historical layers, like for example there is this aviatic school that's obviously former military houses because in pre-modern time there was a lot of soldiers in the city.
I was feeling like I'm touching someone's private space because there is some community of homeless people, of gardeners as well.
Like you have chairs on the road, but you wouldn't sit there because it's obviously belonging to someone.
The natural systems that are here are actually very, very complex in that there's different levels of human intervention, kind of from past and present.
The first impressions of the site for me was that it's very contradictory. That there are like many different elements of public and private spaces that kind of overlap. There are no clear boundaries, no clear cuts between properties of different people, between what is natural, between what is more like human organized and human controlled. And I kind of liked this kind of confusion in space.
You hear about this place that is basically nothing, but it's interesting to see what grows out of nothingness. Because it's not just organic flora and fauna that's shaping up, but it's also how humans interact with something that's, I don't know, somehow hidden, enclosed.
I saw a space that is full of life,
but the life was not human-based, and for me it's enough.
I don't know, throughout time, when you put so much energy into a place, it's really hard not to fall in love.
It was quite interesting, you know, like this, there are so many diverse aspects to this place or how you record this data. That's what I found the most interesting. Okay, like how you end up eventually with something that you can consider data.
I think that the workshops that we did really helped our kind of like differentiating our ways of perceiving the space.
This summer school has been like quite a fun playground for potentials of how you can like analyze space and look at space.
The method of mapping that we are using is a form of critical mapping, and it also enables to bring certain things that are not usually depicted on maps.
In what I study, then it feels like we have this go-to like ways of seeing places, and most of the times you don't agree with like what is planned for this place, but you maybe put yourself like your opinions about what the place should be somewhere closer to what is the plan to like try to negotiate with it.
Planners are very tend to look at the things from top down view. So we thought that the mapping, like different kinds of mapping, can actually bring this kind of human interaction into the planning, and also just to kind of it can help to how do you say that? It can help to make an empty space a full space in a way.
My name is Marcel Uhrin, and I am teacher at the university in Kosice. I am ecologist, zoologist, and used to be 10 years ago also worker of National Park. My role or my task was to tell something about the nature of this spot. It's typical by high level or high abundance of invasive plant species we observed.
I think it's very important to somehow connect your eye with your brain, like to get reflexive and cautious about that. If you are, like, what is the difference between watching and observing? If you want to create a quality data, you have to be in control of the process. So you have to understand the dynamic, like what is happening when you start observing.
Talking about places and space is multi-layered and has a multivocality. And this multivocality is something I wanted to address. You look at a spot from maybe a photo or from above, from maps, you wouldn't see the potential, but suddenly through the relation of the body and the measurement they did, so also the thinking of how to measure and drawing it down, they got a connection to that area. If we as researchers are in the field, we're kind of staging being visible. We are not non-visible.
Today it was mostly about the practice of listening. We tried to tune ourselves and our bodies to the sound world around us, tried to listen to all the small details. And then in the second part, we tried to use the listening experience into process of building our own sounds.
I see mapping as a transfer, as a transferred image from your mind, from your ideas, into concretely the paper, which is a very difficult exercise. And it's very personal. Doing a map is not representing the reality, never. It's representing the way you see the reality. I like the idea that we are going very progressively from getting a sense of the place and then making sure of who is living there and building an utopia with respect with what is already existing.
It's like investigating garbage, I would say. Getting some information out of the material remains on a spot. We found some interesting objects instead of just like casual trash. And then as we met the neighbors, so 3, let's say, jungle inhabitants, homeless people, they also kind of, we got there to understand each other, that it turned out it was for real a home.
We had a workshop about publishing, about doing a book or a zine or a magazine or any other kind of publication on location with analog techniques.
I think it was pretty great to see all the people from different backgrounds doing a thing together and using all the information that they learned in the days before the workshop.
And it wasn't about ability or skill, but rather a desire and intention to embrace some visual imagery and to let that speak of your own utopia.
I don't know how architects build their utopic words or their utopias, but I know how writers do it. If you create a play, you have to create all the world, and this world has some rules. We try to make a word with everything it needs to be, and here we try to make 10 rules for their own utopias, or kind of manifest to show values that are inside of the society, of utopic or dystopic society.
Yeah, it feels like we are getting closer to the place in different ways. It was more kind of uncovering layers and layers each day in each workshop.
It created a bit of a mess in my head, actually.
Each of those layers had some kind of connection with the previous one, in a way, and so then it was kind of a natural flow of kind of gathering these layers and then seeing how to communicate them.
I wouldn't say that my understanding of the site is now like super precise or anything, but it has like these different kinds of bits and pieces that help us though to develop like a vision that has some sketches of like ideas that we could like maybe build on.
For me it was really impressive. I mean, just, you know, being in that exhibition room and just seeing the huge variety of the materials and of the information and all of those things presented in their own way. There was everybody's personality in each of those things, yet it all came together as one coherent whole. And I think that was really amazing because it was one whole that we didn't curate. It just happened.
And that's the thing. You know, that's the power of free play.
The place already has a lot of things to discover. There is a lot to be actually worked on and to be enhanced. So we don't want to change a lot. We didn't prepare a master plan or a proper vision.
We are thinking to bring more water, more greenery for people, like to enrich the whole area and like to make some kind of a symbiosis between the people and the nature.
For my final project, as a law student, I prepared some analytical kind of map about the area. I did some research about who owns the lots there and what kind of movements, like in a legal point of view, are there.
Because of the lack of green spots in the Kosice town, if I have fully freedom, I try to help local nature to create, let's say, some refugium.
I was quite inspired, and I think a few others that I was working with, by this DIY mentality of the space. So we wanted to somehow implement that spirit in the way that we show our work, and the way that the future of this space could be heading towards.
The piece that we're doing tomorrow, I'm quite excited about.
Yeah, so we've decided to make these kind of small interventions, rather like prototyping. They're from this place and they come from here, but they, just by like putting them together, they create this moment where there's something a bit new that could kind of move, the social and economic, maybe natural fabric of the space in some sort of other way.
Our approach is called the Commons, and we have a subtitle saying "Desire produces reality," and we want to do a sort of non-anthropocentric approach of more DIY encouragement, getting the community, also the homeless shelter involved.
I really like the idea to make monastery.
You had an interesting idea with planting some or finding some sort of rare plants.
Yeah.
Or
When I talked with the architect, I basically told him find an endangered species of a bird, of a small bird, plant it there, and declare the whole area a natural reservation.
And right in the middle, you see that the municipality has given the church a building to transform it into a shelter for a particular part of the population, extremely vulnerable, extremely weak, which are those homeless people. And suddenly I thought, this is the heart of the place. It should be there, and maybe the infrastructure should be the heart, and we should imagine to build infrastructure around.
I think this is the problem with development. They, in some areas, they don't have plans. They just want to build, they want to sell, and they don't care about the environment. So yeah, people need to maybe look more around and hear the people's voices and understand their needs. I think everybody should work with everybody, basically.
The completely new idea for me was, for example, to see in this area the potential of do nothing, to try preserve some part of the area, for example, for some kind of laziness or don't be so efficiency that we don't need to be absolutely efficiency in all space but we can make some gaps also and let them be some different way.
Utopias in post-socialist context are kind of abandoned. Like they're not really visible in the debate about cities or about architecture. And I think it's mostly because they were used as propaganda.
I think maybe utopia is also a bit wrongly used in terms of because it is by its definition a place that doesn't exist or will never be able to exist, and at the same time it can help you delineate or define an ideal.
I think utopias are, as I'm a researcher, a great thing to research with. It's like a tool that you can take and use the imagination just to know what is there.
Utopia is like dreaming, I would say. It's like, when you were a kid, you're thinking about other worlds or how it will look like when you be adult and so on. And when you're older and older, you're so stuck by structures and systems and mortgage, whatever jobs. And then you forget that how nice it's just a dream. And then sometimes it's also like these dreams can become like something like self-fulfilling prophecy. No, it's not something unreachable. I think it's just like you imagine something and then step by step you can get to that. You know?
It's like be careful what you wish for, it might come true.
That's it.
Yeah.